Welcome to the League of Women Voters of California Education Fund video series explaining the 2022 statewide ballot measures. Today, we're going to talk about Proposition 30. Prop 30 provides funding for programs to reduce air pollution and prevent wildfires by increasing tax on personal incomes over $2 million. The question it asks is, should California increase the income tax rate for individuals earning more than $2 million and dedicate the generated revenue to support increased use of zero-emission vehicles and wildfire suppression and prevention programs? So let's talk about the current situation. California is experiencing severe drought, increasingly devastating wildfires, and poor air quality. Gas-powered cars and wildfire smoke are the two largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. State law requires California to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions to 40% below 1990 levels, and that ride-sharing companies like Lyft and Uber have 90% of their drivers using zero-emission vehicles by 2030. But zero-emission vehicles like electric and hydrogen-powered cars are not affordable for many residents, and the state does not have enough charging and fueling stations to support increased use of zero-emission vehicles. The state recently committed to spending $10 billion over the next 5 years on zero-emission vehicles, and on average, it currently spends $2 to $4 billion a year on wildfire response. Prop 30 would increase the income tax rate by 1.75% on every dollar of individual incomes over $2 million. The increased revenue would be divided up with 45% of funds to help people, businesses, and government buy zero-emission vehicles. Subsidies and rebates for cars and medium-sized and heavy-duty vehicles like trucks and buses can be funded with this. 35% of the funds would increase the availability of zero-emission vehicle infrastructure, including electric charging stations close to single and multifamily dwellings. At least half of the funds allotted for zero-emission vehicles and their charging must primarily benefit low-income and disadvantaged communities. And 20% of the funds would go to wildfire suppression and prevention. Hiring and training additional firefighters is a top priority use of the money. The tax increase would be in effect for 20 years, ending in 2043, or earlier if certain goals for reduction in greenhouse gases are met, which leads us to take a look at the fiscal effects of this proposition. Prop 30 would generate $3.5 to $5 billion in revenue in most years, increasing over time. That would amount to $2.8 to $4 billion annually in zero electric vehicle funding and $700 million to $1 billion annually for wildfire response. The measure could help decrease state and local costs for wildfire suppression and prevention, but the size of the fiscal effects are a little bit difficult to predict. Supporters of Prop 30 say that greenhouse gas emissions from cars and other transportation are the largest contributors to climate change, and we need to take action now. They say that Prop 30 would make electric vehicles more affordable and would create well-paying green jobs. They also say that this measure would fund critically needed programs to prevent catastrophic wildfires and protect homes. Strict accountability would ensure that these funds are spent as intended. Opponents of Prop 30 say that if these projects are really important, they should be paid for with the state's general fund, not new taxes. They also say that California is already spending more than $50 billion for a multi-year climate investment, including $10 billion for zero-emission vehicles, and that this measure doesn't guarantee that zero-emission vehicles will be affordable for most California families. Opponents further say that money from income taxes will be locked into special interest, reducing money available for other uses like education. And finally, they claim that ultimately Prop 30 is Lyft's attempt to get taxpayers to help foot the bill for the requirement to increase the number of zero-emission vehicles in use. We hope that this summary of Proposition 30 has been helpful. To learn more about what's on your ballot, visit votersedge.org for unbiased candidate information on the measures, and to learn more about voting in your community.